Hey folks, so I was listening to my morning news updates this morning on my phone. I don't know how many of you do that. You get little podcasts and audio updates every morning after your alarm goes off, but I do that. It's a nice way to start the day and kind of catch up with what's been going on since yesterday. And one of the stories that was played during my news update that caught my attention was the story about how the state of California just enacted a law that legalized human composting as a method of disposal of human remains after people have died. So in California now, you have three main options for what happens to you after you die. You can get buried the old-fashioned way. You can get cremated, which I guess is also the old-fashioned way. Or you can be composted, where your remains are put into a container with other biodegradable materials, and you're just kind of left to sit and decompose for a month or two, and your body actually turns into soil. And then the soil is gathered up, and it can be returned to the family. So it's kind of like cremation, only it just takes a little longer. And instead of ashes, you get soil. And then once you have a bag of soil that used to be your loved one, you can do whatever you want to with it. You know, pot plants, spread it in your garden, do whatever you want to do with it. It's kind of nice if you think about it. It's a nice option for people to have. And California is not the first U.S. state to legalize it. It's also been legalized, and I know the state of Washington, I think, was the first state to legalize it, and there's been a couple other states that have legalized it as well. But California doing it is kind of a big deal because California is a very populous state and a very large state. And in many ways, as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. So it's kind of a big deal, right? Well, there was another bit of that story as I was listening to it this morning that caught my attention. And that was the fact that, well, there are some people that aren't very happy about this. And I looked it up online and I found a news article about it to get some more details. And here's what the article I found about it said. Not everyone is supportive of the new California bill, with the California Catholic Conference saying the composting process, quote, reduces the human body to simply a disposable commodity. The practice of respectfully burying the bodies or honoring of the ashes of the deceased comports with the virtually universal norm of reverence and care towards the deceased, said the statement released by the California Catholic Conference. And my reflexive reaction to this, which upon consideration is also my considered reaction to this, is, first of all, who asked you? And second of all, why the fuck do you care? California Catholic Conference or anybody else who has a problem with this? How is this any of your fucking business? It's an option. Nobody's forcing anybody to be composted after they die against their will. If you would like to have, or you would like your loved one to have, a nice traditional Catholic burial in California, nobody's telling you you can't do it. But if other people who have other beliefs or other priorities or have made another choice would like to take advantage of this and have their remains or the remains of their loved ones composted after they die, they have that legal option now. Nothing's been taken away from you. It's a completely natural, safe process. It's not a threat to anybody else. It's not a threat to the environment. You get to honor the dead in the way that you see fit. Other people who see fit to do it a different way are able to do it their way. I mean, it's not as if Protestants are battering down the doors to Catholic cathedrals and coming in there and saying, you all are baptizing people wrong. At least, it's not as if they're doing it anymore. So, who asked you? What do you care? And why should anybody give a shit what you think who isn't a Catholic? I mean, and why should anybody who is a Catholic give a shit what somebody else who isn't a Catholic does to bury or dispose of their dead? As long as it's legal and safe, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? And see, here's the thing that it made me think about beyond this particular issue. Because, okay, California Catholic Conference, I don't know a lot about them. I'm going to guess that politically they lean more conservative than liberal. I'm just going to guess. I don't know for sure. I feel like I'm safe in making that assumption. And it reminds me of this kind of hypocrisy that We see from across the political spectrum that we especially see, it seems to me, in conservative politicians, and just ordinary, everyday citizens of the United States who lean conservative politically. There's this mindset of, well, freedom means being able to live your life according to your choices and do whatever you want to do and not be hassled by the government especially, but also increasingly as we see conservatives embrace all of these culture war issues, not be hassled by anybody. Right? A conservative, a right-winger, a libertarian, whatever they want to call themselves, increasingly, they are all becoming basically the same thing. The labels that delineate specific kinds of conservative become less and less meaningful all the time. But whatever you are, if you're politically over to the right, your idea of freedom is everybody's an individual. Everybody should be able to make their own choices about their own lives and do whatever they want, and they should be able to do this without being hassled by the government or by anybody else because it's nobody else's business, right? That's their underlying philosophy. That's the most basic principle that they build their lives around. Just leave me alone and let me do what I want. Except, and then we have all these exceptions. And we have, a couple of big exceptions that we've been talking about recently, like, well, unless you're a woman or a pregnant person, regardless of whatever gender you are, as if you're a pregnant person that wants to end your pregnancy for whatever reason, you want to have an abortion. Oh, no, you can't do that. No, that's an exception to the let everybody live their lives however they want, right? Or if you are a trans person and you come to realize that the gender you were assumed to be when you were born is in fact not the gender you actually are, and you want to transition, and you need to seek out certain kinds of medical treatment to assist you in the way you've chosen to pursue your transition. Oh, no, you can't do that. Or if you do, well, you can't expect us to pay for it, or you can't expect it to be covered by insurance, or you can't expect the rest of us to respect your pronouns or respect your identity or to treat you with dignity and respect as the gender you are. No, that's too much to ask. That's also an exception to the live and let live philosophy, to the let everybody do whatever they want and nobody hassles anybody over. Like that's a big exception. Or how about this? How about parental rights, right? That's one of the principles that supposedly is behind all of this panic about critical race theory and quote-unquote woke books and lessons being taught in public schools. Well, what about the rights of the parents? What about parents who want to be able to control what their children are taught in school and what they're shown in classes and what they're given to read and these lessons that they're taught? And what if they're taught things about America that make them hate and distrust and feel shame about American history and about their identities as white people or as men or as women or boys or girls or whatever? What about that? What about our rights as parents? Okay, fine, you have rights as parents. Unless you are the parents of a trans child. And you decide that the best thing for your trans child is for you to embrace and love and respect that child as they explore their identity and try to figure out who they are in this world. And you decide that part of that should be that they receive gender-affirming medical care for whatever their needs are. Oh, no, that's abusive. You can't allow a child to receive gender-affirming medical care if they're a trans child. Well, that's horrible. That's abusive. You're a terrible person if you want to do that to your child. We can't let you do that. There's another exception. There's all these exceptions. And it's usually shit that other people want to do. It's almost never stuff that they themselves want to do. You ever see a conservative say, well, I believe in live and let live, and I believe in, allowing people to just do whatever they want without being hassled by the government or other people. But, except for this thing that I like to do, but I've decided that I shouldn't be able to do that. So I'm just going to stop. Like that never seems to be the way it works. It's always directed out. It's never directed in, to the point where they feel the need to express their opinions and offer their thoughts completely unsolicited on shit that has nothing to do with them and has no even possibility of touching their lives at all. Seriously, after a person dies, what do you care what they do with their body? Or what their loved ones decide to do with their body? As long as they don't try to bury them on your property without your permission, why the fuck do you care? What does it matter? And what has happened to your everybody just should be allowed to do whatever they want philosophy? Oh, except, I don't know, my religious beliefs tell me that people shouldn't be composted. People should be cremated or buried. That's just the way. What about the dignity of human remains? What about treating human remains with dignity? What about this apparently universal philosophy? Well, you know what? Apparently some people, a lot of people, because the article I read explains that this disposal procedure, this human composting, is apparently in really high demand. And the places in California that offer it are receiving a lot of requests for it. So it seems like there are a lot of people for whom the idea of a respectful, dignified, loving disposal of human remains includes composting. And if that isn't the case for you, if you are one of the people in the California Catholic Conference, or someone who feels similarly about human composting, if you think about it and it just isn't your thing, and you're like, oh boy, I would never want that to happen. That seems terrible, to just let a body be reduced to soil, and then I would never want that to happen to me. Well, then make sure that the people who are in charge of your remains, make sure it's in your will that you don't want that done to you. And then it probably won't be. Unless you're a fucking asshole about it while you're alive and your kids decide to get one last little measure of revenge. And then they put you in one of those composting coffins, and your body slowly degrades over a couple of months into soil, and then the soil is gathered up and handed back to your kids. And then the kids spread the soil out under a nice tree in their backyard, and then their dogs come up every day and piss and shit all over it. Maybe that's the fate that they think you'll deserve.